All right, folks. I've really never done a video like this, so this is my first time around. These are the new set of prototype counter sheets for Symphony of Destruction. There are 20 of them, not in any particular order at this time. I'll go through them when I run around and sit down and talk about them for a minute or two. Okay, this is counter sheet 1. This is the meat and potatoes of the Germans. The headquarters units are up top. We have a lot of infantry divisions. The combat motorized units here is 36 motorized, 250th Spanish Blue Division, 3rd motorized, 18th motorized, 20th. The panzer troops are in black. And we have 1st Panzer Division here, 6th. They're broken into 2 conf groups. Size is a brigade for echelon and a regiment. And then the headquarters unit itself, so they operate as one unit together. 8th Panzer Division here, 20th. The 12th and the 19th. And some of these are from Armored Group Centers pushed north with 3rd Panzer Group later in the game. The SS are in their camel smock faded out patterns. Here's the Polizei Division, 2nd SS Brigade. Totenkopf is a multi-element formation. The Begleit Brigade or Begleit Battalion, Nord Security, and then we have at the bottom some security divisions broken into regiments, and they operate as MEFs as well. And I'll show you the back side. As you can see on the front here, the zone of control is in the green areas here. When units are moving, they don't usually exert ZOC unless they are well rounded with artillery and lots of infantry. Some of the motorized units have red zone of control color schemes, which means they exert a full ZOC. Yellow, as you can see here, on some of these motorized units, some of the Panzer units as well, they have a reduced or limited ZOC, and anything that's in green doesn't exert a zone of control while it's moving. As we flip the counter over, you will see that these change. The most all the infantry divisions are red, which means full ZOC when they're stationary. A lot of the lighter stuff, pretty much regiment on down, usually doesn't exert a ZOC unless they're oversized, and you'll see the ZOC changes with the Panzer units. They go into limited ZOCs. The headquarters units get full ZOC, and then similar fashion with some of the SS. Totenkopf's HQ echelon, the brigade here has a limited ZOC. Polizei as a division has a full ZOC. You'll also notice some changes on the bottom right of the counter. On the front of the counter, you have, I don't know if you can see this or not, but this, for example, we'll take the headquarters unit for 18th motorized. So it's got a 7 transportation size. That is denoted by these little wheels here. It is a 9 efficiency with blue morale. It has a 1 shock rating, which means it has some tracked or tanks or armored cars types of equipment in it. It gives it its shock value. It has a 1 anti-tank value. Command rating is a 4. Its range while it's moving is a 6. 5 attack, 5 defense, and a 4 move. And these little 2 numbers here just have to do with force marching and supply. And on the back side, when stationary, elements can fire their artillery if they have it. So you'll see that these numbers here change to red. They're no longer representing movement. They're representing artillery fires values, and the small subscript number is the range in hexes. So I'll go over the next sheet. Here we have, at the top, we have the Luftwaffe anti-aircraft battalions, light AA, the Army's light AA. We have some medical enablers. Our replacement system works off of counters. You don't have to keep bookkeeping on a piece of paper or anything. This one, for example, you get +2 infantry replacements, or motorized, there's a motorized symbol here, +2 motorized replacements if a motorized regiment, which this is the symbol here, if the regiment takes a step loss, we use blood symbols, it generates 2 replacement points in 2 game turns. So these markers go on the map and they get used and they go back off to the calendar and recycle. We have some supply markers here, some transportation markers, and then you have ARCOs, which is the German Artillery Headquarters units. Here, they extend command ratings, so you can bring more artillery units into an attack. And we have Panzer I's, Panzer Jaegers, some Stug units, and forward headquarters. Forward headquarters are an extension. They're enablers because they have this band here, this little tinted band around the edge of the counter, and they go out and extend your forward command ability further out than the headquarters units. And then we have leader counters here, and these are some labor units, tote, and we have Reichsarbeit Deutsche labor units. I believe that's what the RAD stands for, I forget. And then there's some of the German naval units. We're thinking about using ship silhouettes, possibly. Not sure yet if I can get that on the counter. We'd have to redesign those, but and I'll show you on the back. In particular, the leadership counters. These have the actual commanders that were in the theater. Now, they're not assigned to a specific corps or anything, but I did get the artwork from photography. Some of them are colorized. I don't know if we'll end up finding color photos of all these guys, but there it is. All right, further on, more Ost troop labor units. We have some reserve markers. We have some engagement markers here. These are deliberate engagement defense markers. If you want to defend against a deliberate engagement, you lose 2 of your command rating to do so. You put those down as a defensive player. We have some corps markers here with the flags, standard rail markers, standard gauge, broad gauge. We have some in training markers. We have a no congestion on those because they don't congest. We have orders markers here, higher headquarters. This would be like Army Group North. Higher, we have 2 sets of those. We have strategic headquarters, which are 1 level down from Army Group North. These would be like 16th Army, 18th Army. And then we have operationals, and these are what the corps use to activate elements and then do their turn. So we have a couple sets of those that are numbered. And then we have independent actions. Independent actions are units that are not in command, and if they're not in command, they lose an action point, which means they basically lose 1/3 of their time during a game turn because they're out of order. And then we have deliberate engagement markers on the 3AP system, which we use. An AP is a day. A DE is a deliberate engagement, or basically a prepared assault. And you can do that in AP1, which would basically reflect day 1, day 2, or day 3. We have some bridge destruction markers, some railroad bridge destruction markers, and then we have some bridge repair markers on this side. On the back, the reserve markers go to Reserve 2. We have completed order markers here. It shows complete for the independents. When you do a deliberate engagement, which is bringing everybody in as much as you can command per echelon all the way down. So if a corps activates to do a deliberate engagement, it can bring in as many divisions as it has command rating, and those divisions subsequently can bring in helpers. So it's always your echelon can command lower echelon. So a division can command brigades, regiments, and battalions. And so you bring everybody in on a DE. When you do so, you lose movement points because it takes time to do a DE. So if you do a DE with a particular corps and it opens a hole up, and you say you have a Panzer Corps behind it, the Panzer Corps can move through the hole because we activate on a per corps basis. but they lose movement points to represent the time taken to open the hole. So those are on the markers. Here we have logistical points, and these are just numerical, 1, 3, 5, 10, and so forth. These represent tonnages. A logistical point represents, in this game, 1,000 metric tons. Those tonnages will change based off of what game and what period of the war. So we're able to model heavier consumers, such as the U.S. Army, which is heavily motorized, still using the LPs, but the game will represent higher tonnages, as will the transport capacity that the U.S. has at their disposal. We have route markers. We have withdrawal markers. These are kind of slick. You have a thing called an efficiency rating. Efficiency ratings are these numbers in the circles up here. Higher is better. It goes from 0 to 9. Efficiency is a key factor in the performance of the unit. You'll see here these panzer divisions are at their peak going into Barbarossa, so these are all 9s. A lot of them are. You'll see a stark difference with the Soviets, but efficiency rating matters. When a unit gets a withdrawal marker through combat or a route marker, they roll a D10, and if it's greater than their efficiency, the counter, there's a flip here, like flip a coin. That means that they suffer the effects of the withdrawal, which is -1 command rating. They lose their zone of control and they're treated at half defense. A route marker, in the same fashion, you have no command rating, no ZOC, and you're at quarter defense. So it's pretty cool. We have ammo. So when a unit moves along the map, it will fight, and then it'll go low on ammo, which is a 4 modifier to its combat effects on a combat die roll. If they go critical ammo, they have an 8 mod, and they have no zone of control and no fires. And so those are on the counter. You don't have to look up a rule. Everything is on the front and the back of the counter. It tells you what to do. Fuel. Motorized units use fuel, as we all know. When you move as a fully supplied combat motorized unit, you will run out of fuel. So the first stage is low fuel, and you can't do a 3 times move. And a 3 times move is the action points. Let me go back to this sheet here. So when I talked about the APs, AP1, like AP1, AP2, AP3, those are representing roughly operations for a day, 3 APs per game turn. A turn is 3 days. So when you go low on fuel, you can't do a move 3 times in a row. When you go to critical fuel, you're in a fuel crisis. Every time you move, I believe that's every time you move, you take a movement loss because you're leaving stranded vehicles behind that have run out of gas. So those are just represented as losses piling up. Here we have some Soviet reserve markers, some more deliberate engagement markers colored for the Soviets, core markers here. There's some depot constructions, some entrain markers, again, rail markers. And then we have, when units dig in, we call them works 2. These are works 2, so you get a combat modifier for the attacker of -2, and a, what is the S? It's not crest, it's S -1. I forget. You think I would know this. I don't know what the S means. Gosh, I'm embarrassed. Anyways, so the works markers are combat penalties. Belts are higher up. Belts are significant improvements in defenses. And again, it has an S modifier, and I can't think right now as I'm talking what that means. C is crest modifier, which I'll maybe get to later when I'm explaining the rest of these counters. You have higher forms of works 3, belt 2. The reserve markers on the back have reserve 2, which is basically you have 2 APs worth of reserve time as opposed to reserve 1, which is 1 AP. Okay. More works and belt markers. We have some more combat markers here. These are A markers, which affect artillery and zone of control when you're doing battles. There's some more entrainment markers I threw in here. These are a couple wall markers. We only have 2. These would be like Sevastopol level of fortifications. They're very potent. Some railroad obstruction markers. We have fatigue in the game. Fatigue is just a marker that will accumulate, and if it gets to a higher level, it turns into straight losses. So we use that to track when a unit, for example, let me find one here. So this German unit here, let's go back to the Panzers. So this German unit here, we'll take an infantry division. So this infantry division has a 5 movement rating, which is standard movement because it's in black. And it has a 3 push or a 3 force march. The force march is how much more it can move in movement points before it accumulates a fatigue. Okay, so if there's a 3 AP turn, the unit can move 3 times at 5 movement points, and it would accrue no fatigue. If it wanted to move a push, like it's doing hard marching, it could go 8 movement points 3 times, but every time it does so, it goes to fatigue 1. That counter would flip to a fatigue 2, and then it would flip again. Oops. It would flip again to a fatigue 3, which means it's a step loss, and then if it keeps going, fatigue 4, another step loss. So that's a way to represent force marching and the wearing effects on ground units, ground elements. Soviet leader markers on this sheet. On the back side, we do have the pictures of all the generals and staff officers that were running the Soviet Army in the North versus Army Group North. We have weather markers. There's some Soviet Navy here. Probably will change the color. These are very similar to the Germans. There's not a big role that the Navy plays, so most of this will probably be in Leningrad or a few of the starting ports, and then they'll retreat out. We have some weather markers: temp, cloud cover, precipitation, which will turn to snow, river ice, river levels, temperature, game turn marker up here, damaged railroad markers here. These are just utility markers to keep track of how much rail capacity that you have used, and we have capacity limitations on how much you can rail stuff along lines. It's not just a capacity where I can rail 5 divisions from the east edge or the west edge onto the front. You can't overload on a rail line because it didn't have the capacity to do so. We have double track and single track, so there's better capacities on double track. These are our loss markers. Now these have changed. I had originally had Soviet and German color-coded loss markers. The Soviets had a Eastern Orthodox cross, and they had a Soviet helmet hanging on the top, but in order to save counters, we opted just to go with a single loss marker. So what I did here was I combined the color scheme of the Soviets but put the German cross on there. Now this kind of coincides with units taking damage, and if you look at, for example, we'll take this security division here. So you see the security division, actually that's not a good example. Let's take this infantry division. You see this infantry division, the 1/10, 11 strength, 11 defense. If it's, for example, if it takes a step loss, it just has a number 1 here in the middle. That means it has no effect on the unit whatsoever. When it gets to the 3rd step loss here, it has an 80% attack value, so 80% of 11 would be what it attacks at, and then 90% of what it defends at. We're going to have a lookup table printed on the map, so you'll not really have to reference that too often. It'll be right there in eyesight of both players, so it should be pretty easy to figure these numbers. It'll lose an anti-tank, which is the shield here, so the anti-tank at 3 losses goes away for this infantry division. It also loses a special ability in shock if it had it, but since it doesn't have it, it doesn't apply, but this would lose its shock value, and its transportation size goes down by 1. So those carry along with the markers like any loss marker does, and the worse you get, it just gets harder. So if I go to the back side here, like here's a 6-step loss. So a 6-step loss here, 2 off of transportation size. It's got half of its ability in shock. So if it had 8 shock, it would have 4, but obviously this unit doesn't have shock. It loses half of its anti-tank. it's at 40% of its attack value and 70% of its defense value. Generally, we reasoned that it's easier to lose attack capability than defense capability, and this will prove valuable for the Germans as the war goes on. They're able to hold together and keep their defense ratings above what their attack ratings are, and that keeps that army together longer. Here, just more loss markers. They go from no losses to 10. 10 takes them, once they hit the 11th loss, they're destroyed. We have a unique damage system, so all units can take 10 losses from full strength to dead. And I'll get into that in another video, but that gives a lot of attritional power to smaller units. It's not one and done or two and done for any type of unit. It's easier to damage smaller units, especially when larger units are hitting them, but they do have, some resilience. We just have some odds markers here. These are some combat markers that I'll get into in another video. Construction, I just added some more fuel markers and ammo over here, and we'll get to the Soviets now. All right, so the Soviets, we have all of our headquarters units up here. These are the fronts: Leningrad, Northwest, Volkov front, and there's different versions of these counters. As time goes on, you'll be doing counter substitutions. So some of these headquarters units in this prototype set will have some upgrades to them. This is about, this takes us through mid 42, so we still have 2 years of counters to print, and I'm not sure what that number is going to be. The OB for the Germans is completely done, but we don't have the OB for the Soviets is done. I don't have all the markers created for them yet. So this is what we have, and this is what we're going to be playtesting with in about, a month. So we have the Soviets have MEFs as well, multi-element formations, and they are color-coded in the NATO symbol. So this is all one unit, this is all one unit, so on and so forth. You'll notice here, if you can read these, I'm not sure if you can, their efficiency ratings are really low for these at start tank divisions. They're zeros and ones, and that's a huge effect on performance, and it allows, it's real difficult for the Soviets to coordinate and do attacks, and when they do attacks, they usually don't end up doing very well. It's not just about attack strength, okay, or shock value. This efficiency rating has a huge impact on performance. Moving further down, we have here's the 84th mech, which is 4-unit element, and you get further down here, you got Soviet, basically pre-war divisions. Their efficiency ratings are 5s, 6s, a lot of them are 1s, but there's a hodgepodge of different ratings, but these aren't not at all close to what the Germans are pushing efficiency-wise. Some of these units are large, some of them have pretty good values, but and some like this one here, the 65th. I don't know the history of this unit off the top of my head, but it's probably been a pre-war division for a while. Might have had experience in Finland, and so it's beefed up a bit. So these aren't cookie cutter. These are all rated in various ways to come up with these different attack values and defense values and anti-tank and engineering ability. So all these divisions are unique. Rated uniquely. Now that's going to be a challenge as the war goes on. We don't have all the data we want, but we have methods to variate the ratings instead of having like a standard 11 attack or 12 attack, or in Europa terms like a 3-6 or a 4-6 or a 6-6. There's a lot more nuance to our rating system. So those are the Soviets there. Up top, we have more divisions. We have guards, militia divisions, 1st Leningrad, 1st Guards, 2nd Leningrad, and these are coded in this NATO symbol is kind of a pale yellow. NKVD, the NKVD are here. We have the Estonians with the flag, the Latvians with their flag, and these are Soviet allied nations, at this time. And then we have the Lithuanians here, more Soviet brigades, regiments. We have some ski units as well. And these are enablers. So these are tank battalion enablers. So these are basically just deployed from a holding box onto a unit that needs it, and it provides +1 attack, +1 defense. It gives 3 shock, 1 anti-tank, and then they go away at the end of the turn. They kind of go through a cycling process. These aren't counters that stay on the map. All right, let's see. These are fortress units. So these are what you'll see on the border. Fortress machine gun units. There's a whole litany of them. We have border guards units that will be on the border, anti-tank units, a whole slew of artillery. These are battalion or regiments, I'm sorry. We have some anti-aircraft. We have mortars here with the little mortar symbol. I might have to increase that little prong that sticks out of the circle there. It's easy for me to read. It doesn't change the effect of what it does. It has a +6 fires rating. Actually, it's a +6 attack value, 1 defense, 7 movement, and then we have Soviet naval coastal units here. These are the paratroopers, the 201st, the 9th, and the 10th Brigade. They start, I think, east of Daugavpils somewhere. But those are good units. They have great morale. It's blue-colored morale is good. We have 5 colors for morale: yellow, green, orange, blue, and red. Red you're going to see with like fanatical units like the NKVD up here are red in morale. Blue is pretty much standard elite type of morale for nations. And then you have, some of the SS will be red. I'm sure there are other nations that will have some reds as well, but that's our scheme. All right, moving on to this sheet, we have some NKVD security, rail security troops. I think these are trains, armored trains that the security troops ran. Guards here, VBS, anti-aircraft units. All along here, you'll see that they have an air silhouette underneath the number. That represents the anti-aircraft value. We have some rail repair regagement counters, and these are rail engineers. The 1, 1, and 1 here, if you can read that, 1 is you get to regauge 1 hex. If it's a clear hex, you get 1 more, and if there's no water in the hex, e.g. a river or something you have to cross, it requires a bridge, you get a 3rd hex. So we've solved the regauging problem by just representing it on a counter. This counter moves up with your railhead, and you just get to push these up on a per turn basis. So that takes care of that. We have some assault engineers here, more replacement types of units. So these are like representing medical assets. And then we have more rail units for the Soviets. And here on this sheet, we have more enablers. So these enablers, again, have this darker band. I might have to darken that a bit more. These counters are really good for prototypes, but they're not at production quality. So the print isn't perfect. And these counters are actually, they snip on the sides instead of the corners, but that's what we get for now. These are heavy, these are MG units here, some more security, and then we've redone the air system, so it's only represented by a Gruppe, and we have headquarters counters though, and I'll get into that in another video about the Air Force. So this is a German Luftwaffe for basically up through 42, and there's no upgrades. I don't have any aircraft upgrades, so these are basically what the Germans start with. And then on the back side, half strength. And losses for the Air Forces are going to be historical. It'll be calendar based. There's no air combat. There's fighter air superiority influences on mission success, but there's no tedious sending fighters out and doing interceptions and all that. It's kind of just built into historical loss rates. We have river ownership markers. So if we have major rivers that go in the middle of a hex, one side can own half of it and the other side can own the other. So we have markers for that. There's interdiction in the game. These are movement point costs. And then we have some facility damage. So if you want to bomb a port, as an example, you would have damage to the facilities. And then we have a, this is my favorite counter. It's the reroll counter, and it's got Beaker. And you get a free reroll, but you got to pass it to your opponent. And then on the other side, I put loser. So I really like that marker. And we have, we kind of have some Muppet names going on in our game, and we'll get to that later. But Soviet Air Force here, a little bit larger. Again, this is only at start. More facilities, loss markers, interdictions, and we have missions for Air Force units. And again, I'll get into this in probably an air video that we do after we play test coming up in September, because I got to make sure that this is going to stick. But real quick, we have air fatigue, kind of like ground fatigue. And this is something we're going to implement that will eventually turn into losses. There's strategic interdiction. That's traditional. You go to a rail junction or a road junction, and you bomb it, and then it causes these movement point reductions. There's combat airdrops, so you have to put these orders down in order to fly that mission. You just can't grab it and go. There's air transportation, close air support, which is pretty much exclusive to dive bombers and attack aircraft. We have tactical interdiction, which you fly into battles, and these are providing fire support for the battle. In certain ways, it's different though than close air support. Close air support is the most effective chart. We have 3 air charts. We have a close air support, we have a level bombing chart, and then we have an attack chart. So if the aircraft is rolled to be an attack aircraft, it rolls on the attack chart. If it's a dive bomber, it rolls on the dive bomber chart. And so we have limitations that way, and those charts aren't the same. The least effective of the charts is the level bombing chart. The most effective is the close air support done by dive bombers, and then the attack aircraft are in the middle. We have strategic interdiction, another marker here. There's strikes. So if you want to just go bomb an enemy ground unit that's not on the front line, you run a strike mission, and that has its own table. There's sea denial. So if you want to have some effects against the opponent moving stuff by sea, either troops or supplies or just moving ships, you do a sea denial roll. And if you're running aircraft in sea denial, it modifies that roll. There's a little bit of staging involved if you want to stage an aircraft forward to fly a mission. There's transfer missions, and that about covers it. Hopefully this was helpful, but this is the new prototype sheets, and we'll be posting more videos coming up in about a month on our YouTube channel. Hope you enjoyed. Thanks.